problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Good afternoon, Johnson County. We are back with a new episode. Today we're having Georgia Wright Head. She is a lifelong educator here to discuss with us our next segment on the topic of human trafficking. Today we're discussing whether gender ideology being taught in public schools has any impact on the rise in trafficking of young boys, and whether it is inherently normalizing the industry of child sex trafficking. You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So without further ado, I'm going to give it to Georgia Wright Head. She's going to be introducing herself and basically telling us a little bit about her experience as an educator and the kinds of discussions she has led in the past with other groups aside from our radio shows. So if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Mick, for having me on today. I really appreciate y'all asking me. My name's Georgia Wright Head. I grew up here in outside of Joshua, Texas, here in Johnson County. Graduated from high school, Joshua High School, went there K through 12, got married my high school sweetheart. He was from Burleson, and we moved away, raised our family, and just recently, the past couple of years, moved back home. Our parents are here, and they're aging, and we're here and back home with family. So I have been a public school teacher for this starting this school year will be year number 28. I did retire from the classroom in 2020. No, 2020 when COVID hit. I haven't been in the physical classroom since then. I teach for an online virtual academy right now. So, and human trafficking, that is just such an emotionally sad topic, and it's such a problem. And I know with the movie that's out, The Sound of Freedom, I'll give a little plug for that. I just saw it a few days ago, and it's just really heart-wrenching. And I was sharing this with Jake before we went on. Teachers have to go through a lot of professional development before the school year starts in states. And there's a lot of federal mandates and state mandates of trainings that teachers have to hear every year, like, 504 and IEPs, and, how to deal with your special populations, and how to identify child abuse or child neglect, anything like that. And in the last several years, when I was in a classroom, and now we do those trainings online with a virtual academy. So it's still the same thing, how to identify a child that may be caught up in some of the child trafficking situations. So, and just hearing that all through the years, it's almost as if until you've seen it with your own eyes, or until it affects you or someone you know, or you see a movie as moving as that one, it's almost like it's some out of reach thing that it's out there, but you think to yourself, oh, this doesn't happen here. But I know that it's going on here. It's happening in the Metroplex. I know I-20 and I-35 are huge corridors for moving that kind of thing around. And I know you touched on some of the curriculum that's coming up. And one thing I think we all need to watch, I didn't mention this earlier. I'm the Johnson County director for an organization called Families Engaged for Effective Education. And what we do, we just kind of help acknowledge or watch what's going on in our public schools, help parents be parent advocates, stand up for parental rights, protect the children, watch what kind of curriculum's coming in. And these kind of curriculums, like you were talking about, some of the things that are coming into our schools, they sneak them in very, very slyly. And a lot of times, or most of the time, it's not the teacher's fault. The teachers don't even realize it. Okay. Because I have a feeling that most of our teachers, I know all of the ones that I've been in contact with, they're all very good people and only what's best for the children.
It's mainly coming from the higher ups.
Yes, that's what I believe.
The sense of indoctrinating the teachers to indoctrinate the kids in a way.
Right. And it just starts out something very, very simple. I don't have a lot of experience with any of the transgender issues. I have had a couple of stories, I had, but I've always taught high school. So I've never really.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I don't know. I was in some early childhood classes way back in the 80s, when I was in college. And
did you avoid middle school?
I taught middle school for 2 years. And said
that was your time in purgatory.
And I was very young. That was my first teaching job. And I said, never again. But when I was in college, I worked with the early childhood, and I thought, well, I might add that certification. But I just figured out high school is my sweet spot. I just identify I can work with those children a whole lot better.
I have to ask. So right now there's kind of two debates happening with a lot of parents. The first is, well, we can't do anything, or can we do anything? And the second one is, well, should we just pull our kids out and homeschool or go to private schools? Do parents, what would you recommend basically? Can parents actually effectively stand up, or should they just pull the kids out?
I think they should try to stand up because I've always been a public school teacher. My children went to public school. I was public school educated. I'm always going to advocate for public schools. But on top of that, I'm always, always, always going to advocate for parents' rights. Okay. If a parent, and I've worked with several parents, in Johnson County and in a couple other counties, that their parental rights are not being granted. And in that case, there's sometimes that, maybe you do need to pull your child out. That would be, kind of my last resort. But I think it's up to the parents to kind of stay on top of what their children are learning in school.
So if you're listening, you're a parent, you can actually stand up and fight.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, there are all kinds, we're a parent advocacy group. We're there to help. I can't tell you how many parents have reached out to me and said, I had no idea I could even stand up to that, or I could even do that. And I'm like, absolutely. You're the mom, you're the dad, you have the final say. So,
we actually, I don't know if you know Matthew Lucci.
We've met, yes.
He's the congressional candidate. He says school districts should be required to post their curricula on their websites and then let the parents review and then choose whether to send their kids there or not.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. And you know what? I was going to mention this earlier and I got sidetracked. I get sidetracked a lot. I chase a lot of squirrels. But House Bill 1605, that's just, we're getting ready to get hit with that.
Yeah. And
a lot of our state reps were all for that. It was being pushed real heavily by Abbott and Mike Morath, the Texas Education Commissioner, for TEA. And it is moving away from textbooks. So you're not going to have, a physical book, paper and pens. It's going to be mostly online. Okay. Now,
and which I had, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
that's fine.
One thing that you had given a talk was at the at True Texas Projects meeting, which I want to give a shout out to them. They have a lot of wonderful speakers. They're actually having a meeting tonight. In I believe it's Cleburne.
Yes.
Over I can put it out here on my Facebook and tag Joco Community Radio later, but they have a lot of wonderful speakers, and Georgia was one of them one evening that Mick and I had actually gone during my campaign for city council, and you had given a wonderful presentation on how they're sneaking in, not just the gender ideology mess that's being pressed on the students unknowingly of the parents and the actual teachers themselves, but how we're getting all sorts of cultural Marxism put in through the school through emotional support based learning rather than fundamental mathematics or literary based learning. If you want to discuss that a little bit, discuss your experience with the emotional support learning, I think it all, we can correlate that back to human trafficking in children. Is if you are kind of priming these children to normalize something that is immoral, then the first place you're going to start is the place that the kids spend most of their time in the public school system.
Right. Yeah. Because kids are, usually, during the school year, they're there during more of their waking hours than they're at home. So that's absolutely right. But I did want to go back to that House Bill 1605. It is moving from books to online materials. And the problem with posting online materials and saying, oh, well, here's our curriculum, it's always fluid. Okay, so that means, okay, let's show mom and dad this, but we can change that. And again, maybe that's not even something that the teacher's responsible for. So I would, I'm not blaming the actual teachers for any of this. A lot of times it's coming from somewhere else.
The upper echelons.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay. But the social, what our organization is heavily against, and what I'm personally against, is the transformational social emotional learning. And I know I'll have a lot of people say, well, you don't want your kids learning manners at school. Okay, I'm not talking about manners. It's one thing for, especially as a high school teacher, yes, you have to teach everyone in your room, even at high school, ninth graders. Okay, we're going to sit at this table all together and we're all going to get along and we're going to, be nice to each other. Yes, we're teaching manners. Okay. That's not what I'm calling the social emotional learning. Okay. I'm talking about where teachers are teaching or asking, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling lonely? And just really, I know the Texas Education Commissioner, Mike Morath, that's something that he would like to see tested. He wants to see our Texas children tested on emotional skills.
And that, you touched on a very important topic too. And I think that our children are being taken advantage of for partisan political gain. And it might not even be for the party. It might be for the individual who is making money off implementing these ideas, who has bought stock in an overseas corporation to do this. And one thing that you had mentioned at the True Texas Projects meeting that you had spoken at was a lot of this data might get even sent over to communist China.
Oh yeah.
So not only are our children being taken advantage of, being taught this uh, idea that it's okay to normalize immorality and child sex trafficking, but we are also engaging them for the gain of an overseas uh, enemy who practically are against militarily, diplomatically. So why not close the gap and make sure that the kids aren't being seen and their data is being breached by communist China too?
Exactly. And a lot of these and parents out there that may be listening, if your children, gosh, work on Chromebooks, what they'll open their Chromebook, log in, they have to answer like maybe a little, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you happy? Are you sad? That data is being mined, goes back to a third party vendor. And I've got some parents that have actually done an open records request to some of our schools here in the area, asked for that. What are we doing with that? The teachers didn't know what they were doing with it. The counselor didn't know what they were doing with it. When we asked administration, they said, oh, we'll have to talk to our attorney before we give that to you. I mean, and then I know for sure Crowley ISD has been caught sending that information to their vendor, and their vendor was sending it to China. So it's being used by somebody else, not the teachers, not the counselors, for nefarious reasons, your children. And probably what we're thinking, it's all going to compile a social credit score at some point that's going to follow that child for their entire life. So maybe they don't get into their Yale or their Harvard because they didn't sit at the table with enough people of a different race when they were in kindergarten.
And that really plays into the whole the central bank digital currency scheme that we've got going. You talked about that social credit score on the emotional support learning following them the rest of their life. We have a currency that is now on the rise, at least in ideology, in the federal government, that gives the federal government the ability to create this online digital currency that they can track every purchase. It's just like a credit card in a sense. So it would be very easy for not only the children, but the parents of those children to maybe buy something and they say, well, you're not buying enough food. Your child has not been happy at all this week, or they're feeling hungry or this or that.
Or you're not buying enough soy milk, or you're buying too much meat. It's better for the environment.
Right.
So then that opens the door to cutting off your credit card, your bank statement, and not being able to do anything with your children.
Right. Yeah. I had one mom telling a story. This wasn't here in Johnson County, but the child had answered too many times that they were hungry and they were sad on their little score, and they called Child Protective Services. And we know what's been in the news about some of the child CPS and here in Texas, even.
They're just as bad as the traffickers half the time.
Exactly. So is that something you want just because you're a child? And that's another reason we don't want elementary age children using technology all day at school. Technology has its place, but not logging in and doing every single lesson on a computer.
I'm guessing bivocal sales have been down recently.
That you have a good point there about the computer. I'm okay with technology in the class. I mean, I'm Gen Z. I'm 22 years old, or about to be, just for context for everyone listening. I grew up around technology. I grew up playing Minecraft, for God's sake.
Way of life, yeah.
Yeah, it's good if it's being used in supports in a supplemental style. But why are we relying on it?
Especially for our organization pushes to take it completely out of classrooms from K to 8. And I'm not talking about a robotics class where they're working with little robots or something like that. I'm talking about logging onto a Chromebook, doing all of their assignments on that Chromebook. A mom that I'm very, very close to, she said her son is not allowed to have a computer or cell phone at home. He's in the 7th grade. But he can't bring his Chromebook home from school. So she's not able to look and see what he's doing online at school. And I was like, okay, now if I was a mom, I would really have a problem with that.
I'd throw a fit personally.
Yeah.
They're making a really good argument for homeschooling or private schooling.
So, yeah. And that's where I believe that they're trampling on parental rights. She said, can I have a book? Can he bring a book home? Well, they don't use books in the 7th grade. Everything's done on their Chromebooks. And again, that curriculum, they may have something really nice posted that passes the sniff test for the district or the area, or their local groups. But that's fluid. If it's online, it's fluid. It can be changed.
And I do want to bring something up about the unmonitored educational curricula that they're putting in there. And I know that you might not have a lot of long term experience with the gender studies that are in public schools. Um, right now, what we're seeing is a rise in these things being put in the schools where parents might not even know that what their kids are learning for this stuff. Um, I brought a few articles in simply for the sake of showing them. There was one from the San Francisco Chronicle by Bob Egelko. It says judge tosses lawsuit to force California schools to disclose students' gender identity to parents. So when you have states that are teaching this mess to the children, which when I was 7 or 8 years old, all I really learned about boys and girls was that you don't beat girls up on the playground, and
Wait, what?
you take it light with the other guys because you're out there to play, you're out there to learn. And to see entire states putting up this mess that and I really do think this stems from the emotional support learning.
Yes.
You are taking a concept to students, and this is what I had told Mick on Tuesday. If anybody remembers, we we have this communist ideology that's infesting the schools, not because teachers are allowing it or students are allowing it, but it's because they're taking advantage of the timeless saying, "This is what I want to be when I grow up." And they really tap into the students' desire to belong to other students, and they create these cliques that some students that don't feel very popular, the schools are like, well, maybe you're the wrong gender, and then teaching this I want to call it a soup. It's alphabet soup on top of it, that students, because they don't belong, they're not part of the right group, and then they're teaching this ideology on top of it. It really does nothing but confuse students.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've worked with teenagers day in and day out for the past 27 years of my life, and there's no one more confused on a day-to-day basis. Their hormones are raging. Now I'm talking about 9th through 12th graders. That's what all of my experiences with. One day they love Johnny, one day they love somebody else.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a boy, maybe it's a girl, but and they would come, and I was a family and consumer science teacher, so I was kind of the mom of the school a lot of times in most all my schools. So they would come to me more with their personal problems, and I would say, you know what, just give it some time. It'll all work itself out. I've had them confide in me about all kinds of issues, and some of them include some of that. And I said, you don't have to figure this out today,
Yeah.
and it's not, this is my personal opinion, it's not my business, it's not the school or government's business to be teaching that to any
Amen.
certain child. Don't, if that's what the parent wants to do. I had a child one time, this is just a quick story, and the school had told me she was a girl on the birth certificate, and we have to go by their name on their birth certificate.
Yeah.
And that's how they have to register. But they told me, it was a new student coming in, but she identifies as a boy and she wants to be called, Sam or whatever, not a girl's name. And so I was calling the mom to welcome, always at the beginning of the year, call home and kind of introduce myself, welcome all the kids to class. And I got the mom on the phone and I said, well, I'm happy to have Sam, in my class. She said, please do not call her that. She is so confused.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to do what the mom says,
So,
what the parent wants.
Sorry to interrupt. So
No,
you're
that's
telling
fine.
me the school knowingly went against the wishes of the parents?
Well, I'm not so sure that particular thing happened, and it could have just been the kid showed up to register maybe and just said, hey, call me Sam, or Roger or whatever it was. It was a definite boy's name, and she was definitely a girl. But and the mom and I had a talk, and she said, one day she thinks she's a boy, one day she thinks she's a girl, and we just need to not confuse her. And I said, well, that I'm not going to play any part in that. I'm going to do exactly how you want me to, relate to that child. So
I want to bring up a point too. And Jacob has the statistics on this from multiple studies.
Yeah.
A lot of these children who are being fed this nonsense, this insanity, have autism, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder, bipolar.
We do have that article from Evie magazine. It says, and this is, I'm not sure if this is a left or right leaning article, but it says 53% of mothers of boys with reported gender dysphoria meet criteria for borderline personality disorder. And this isn't just some magazine making up stuff. That was put out surprisingly by the National Institute of Health, which under Dr. Fauci, I wouldn't expect him to be that honest, but this had come out, I think, a year or two back, and it's just now making headlines for being an undisclosed or re-uncovered report. So I think, what we're seeing is not just the educational aspect of it, but you have a nation where families are in decline.
Oh, yeah.
And I really do respect you for sticking up for the parental rights, because if there's anybody that is raising these children, it's not the state.
Right.
And there deserves to be a chance for parents to better their children, to encourage them to reach for higher goals, to associate in a sense of belonging with the community. You don't have to be XYZ to belong to this country. You can be a fireman, you can be a policeman, you can be perfectly fine being a boy or a girl. And we're not here today to debate the transgender controversy between the right and the left today. Our goal is to explain that with Georgia's experience as an educator, we do have a problem in the schools where human trafficking might begin with the students and the curriculum itself.
Especially in elementary. I mean, I can't even imagine, if you're if an adult's talking to an elementary age child about that, and like you said, normalizing it,
Pick your gender on the back of my van.
Yeah. Gosh,
It's a bad joke.
It's very dangerous too. I don't know if you're willing to let me open up this book real quick, but there is a passage in it that I think everybody should know, including Georgia. I had mentioned this to her during the discussion she had at True Texas Projects. It's a book called Bolshevik Visions. It's called The First Phase of the Cultural Revolution in Soviet Russia. And part one discusses the culture of a new society, ethics, gender, the family law, and the problems of tradition. There is a passage in here. All of these, mind you, are by communist writers, communist authors, by A. Kalantai. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce the name, so you're going to have to give me a pass on that. But the way that they are showing exactly what the plan is. They have a section here, section 3 of Kalantay's essay. It says the upbringing of children, a matter for the state. It says, even here in this matter, a comradely workers' state will overcome the family. Society is taking upon itself little by little all concerns which previously were parental. Even under capitalism, the teaching of children had ceased to be the work of the family. Children were taught in schools. When children reached school age, parents accepted that the work of the child's intellectual development would now be taken from them. But quite a few other tasks were left to the family: to feed the children, provide clothes and shoes for them, and to raise them as honest, efficient workers who would be able to feed themselves and their parents in their old age. It goes on to say, communist society, without doubt, will hurry to meet parents' needs and relieve their difficult burden. He goes on to say, doesn't this show how caring for children is moving beyond the boundaries of the family, taken away from parents and transferred to the collective society? And then it ends up the essay with italicized, the family is ceasing to be a necessity. So if we have communist writers explaining that this goal, not necessarily the correlation to human trafficking, but the downsizing of the family in terms of state to family matters, do you think that we are seeing a new era of education where parents are kind of the backseat drivers of the school system?
Oh, absolutely. And I know have teachers, and I mean, I've taught in very low, impoverished Title I schools, low income areas, and I know there's not a lot of parental support. And if you go into some of the large inner cities, not hardly any parental support. Okay, and so I can sympathize with the teachers of like, well, if we don't teach them any of this, who will? Okay.
Yeah.
But what about all the people out there like me and you and a lot of our listeners and the people here in our community that are trying to do what's right and live free and preserve our country? We don't want the government raising our kids. That's the parents' job. And ultimately, even in a high poverty area, it's those parents' job. You know, they have that right. We cannot take that away from them. You know, if they're doing a bad job, maybe yes, somebody needs to step in and help that. But who's to decide who's doing a good job and a bad job? That's not the government, unless, of course, I'm not talking about, you know, cases of strict abuse.
You're
I'm not
saying the
talking about
government can't just show up because little Johnny answered negative answers too many
exactly
times. Yeah.
Or
parental rights.
he didn't sit with the, you know, with the enough people of the same race. That's not the government's job to decide, you know, what's going to happen.
We did have a viewer question for you.
Okay.
So Mr. Bush wants to know, how is the Texas budget surplus so big yet we can't afford textbooks?
Yeah, they want to do away with those textbooks because you've got a software developer as your Texas Education Commissioner.
And we do have
Funny how that works.
no time left, so we're going to go to a commercial break. Stay with us. We'll be back with Georgia and Mr. Shelton.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Good afternoon, Johnson County. Welcome back to Let Freedom Ring. I'm your host, Jake Wernette, here with co-host Mick Goins. We've got Georgia Wright Head here joining us the second segment with Mr. Matt Shelton. First, we'd like to let you know that Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free on Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store, check out our lineup and more at JocoCommunityRadio.com. This episode and more is brought to you by Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your local Texas sales rep at 844-839-4245. That's 844-839-4245. Be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors for making this show possible. And if anybody, local businesses in the Johnson County area, are looking to support the show here, Let Freedom Ring, you're more than welcome to contact the studio or contact Sean and us through the comments here. I'll be going through and looking at it after the show. If anybody is willing to help out support future episodes like this. We've got Mr. Shelton here to my right. He's going to be discussing his group, Freed People, which actually helps with recovery and search and rescue for child traffic victims. He assists local and county level law enforcement. So without further ado, I'm going to let him take it away.
How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good to be here.
So would you mind telling us a little bit about Freed People? I know that a lot of the media is kind of censoring the organization right now, but you're free here to discuss anything you want. Let our viewers know what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. My name is Matt Shelton, and I lead an organization right here locally called Freed People. And it's our conviction as freed people that we ought to lead the fight to free others.
Amen.
So that's our DNA. What that looks like is I left corporate America about 5 years ago for full-time ministry, leading an anti-human trafficking organization that had operations in 13 different countries. Was blessed to be able to do that. Had a front row seat to really watch God do amazing things for a long time in a number of people's lives. But I just couldn't escape what's going on here, right? You get the Amber alerts.
Oh, yeah.
You see all of what's going on in our own backyard. And
Every day.
Absolutely, you bet. And so just like you, trafficking looks different from city to city, from country to country. It looks different here. And so I had to go on a journey to see what that looked like. So I resigned from my position, and my wife and I just said, you know what, we're going to go all in, and we're going to figure out what this thing looks like, and we're going to go step by step and just see what God does. So what we did is we had a lens for search and recovery. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great things in the space, but that's the lens that we have. That's our lane. And so we started sharing our mission and our passion with everybody that we had without an ask, without a call to anything. And we just wanted to see what would happen, and it never returned void. Whatever the case was. But we got to share our information with top politicians, with law enforcement, with NGOs. And it really all came together when on a trip to Houston. Bissonnette Street in Houston, Texas is the second most trafficked street in America.
Really?
Figueroa in LA is the number one trafficked street in all of America. But you don't have to go to Southeast Asia. You don't have to go to Central America to see it. It's in our backyard. And most, I doing it for a living, I didn't realize the severity of it until I was faced with it. But we went to embed in a motel and just watch it go down. We were there to meet with a friend of mine who I'd met, and my wife and I pull up to this motel, and it was about 10 minutes off the track. And my friend calls me. He says, "Hey, we're next door," and went over there to meet him. And about 15 minutes into our conversation, his phone pinged. He said, "Are you ready?" I looked at my wife. I said, "Ready for what?" Missing girl's mother just texted me. Her phone pinged at a motel 10 minutes down the road. We're going. I said, "All right, let's jump in." So we jump in. My wife's looking at me, and I'm way over my skis at this point, but it's surreal in the moment. And so he's got a guy that a partner that he works with. He went down, got intelligence in the motel parking lot. We sat adjacent to the motel in a mall parking lot and just watched it, and really got to understand the whole scope of what was going on. So he's just showing me this is a Wednesday night. It's not a Friday night. Wednesday night, all these people going into this motel, and it was packed for 15 or 20 minutes. Those are dope deals. All the people, and we saw tons of women and tons of men that looked like every facet that you can imagine, going in and going out. And he said, "Those are human trafficking deals." So we're just watching it and watching it and watching it. And he's just showing me, and it's just really opening my eyes. And before you know it, his partner pings him and he says, "I got eyes on her. I've got eyes on her. She's in a stairwell." So
that's right here in the heart of Texas.
Yeah, it's Houston, Texas.
Houston.
Yeah. And so we set up a sting. She meets us about 75 yards from the motel at a gas station. She comes walking up just like any other 15-year-old on her phone, looking at her phone, walking up. And, I'm not sure what to do. And I looked at my friend and I said, "I guess I'm going to get out and act like I'm getting gas." And so I get out. She's walking up. We both walk up to her, and we called her by her name. And we said, "Destiny, we know who you are. And you know what? Everything's going to be okay. And your mom's right around the corner." And so she was nonverbal at the time that we picked her up. And long story short, that's really where Freed People started. My friend down there had been doing ops for about 9 years, and he's worked with much of the state and local federal law enforcement agencies down there. And he was excited because he had never met this detective that was coming on scene. And so I'm sitting in the car, and as soon as the detective gets there, about 30 minutes later, his first words out of his mouth were, "Thank you for making my job so easy." And
wow.
It just really resonated with me that man, law enforcement is the tip of the spear on this fight. They are. And there's a lot of hardworking people in law enforcement. But from a time perspective, how much time do they actually have to be out here on the streets doing what we're doing? And so it was just really cool to see my friend there tee up law enforcement to come in and get the recovery. And that's how it happened. And so that's really where Freed People was birthed. Like I told you, freed people, free people. Galatians 5:1 says we've been freed to free others. That's our conviction as freed people, and we're all in to see freedom happen. And so what we've done is we've come along, teams just so our guys in the field that we've come alongside, they're already doing it, right? This guy was already doing it when we met him. I said, man, how do you afford what you do? He's a private investigator. And he said, what do you mean, how do I afford it? I said, well, I mean, what do you do? He said, well, I don't charge any of the families I work with. I said, oh, man. Wow. So that's a non-negotiable for me. He considers it predatory. I said, all right, well, how do you fund your cost of operation? He said, Matt, how do I fund it? He said, we live in a 50-year-old home. It's 900 square feet. My wife's a school teacher. And when we have more money, we're out here longer. When we have less money, I still figure out a way. And I'm just like, wow, he's not one of these guys that give me $20,000 and I'll go in for a recovery. He's out there beating the streets every night. So it was at that moment where really it just resonated. Well, JB, what if I could come behind you and cover your expenses and actually fund your cost of operation? And he started just sharing everything that he just lit up, right? And he's like, at the end of the day, oh my gosh, I could recover more kids. Like, that's the deal. Like, we could recover more kids. I don't know if you guys have gotten into the numbers, but from
Mick and I had discussed from the Homeland Security report the amount of kids that are taken every year, the amount that people spend on this stuff, and it's really disgusting to see that people do this. And we had shared a prayer with Matthew Lucci afterwards that this issue isn't just going to get solved with us, and that's really what I appreciated. For those who don't know, Matt's mom and I worked together at the supermarket, and she has said nothing but good things about your ministry, and that's actually
she is my mom.
But I had taken her for your biggest supporter and your biggest fan.
She is, yeah.
But she had told me, she said, well, if you're getting a human trafficking episode, there's no way that you can do it without Matt. And so it was really stirring to me to see that we had people that were doing this on the home front. And for people that saw the movie Sound of Freedom, we can see Tim on the episode going out to South America and Asia and working for the federal government doing this, but not a lot of people are going to take the time to notice that we have those organizations in our backyard. And that's really, really what I appreciated about it, was that you took the initiative to solve something, even though, you might not even get a lot of publicity for it.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we appreciate this opportunity. When you do a deep dive and you study what does it really look like, right? How many children are being trafficked here and what's being done? Who's rescuing these kids? And so you look at the NGOs and you start studying those guys out, and you see them doing some amazing things in the space. But again, I have the lens of search and recovery. What are they actually doing? So, nonprofits file I-990 at the end of every year, and they also give year-end reports, and you can study out a lot of that stuff. But if you study out the 4 largest NGOs in this space, they brought in over $71 million.
Wow.
And in that $71 million, they did some incredibly good things. I'm not here to dismantle any of that, but what I'm here to say is that equated to 2,200 recoveries, and that's international and domestic. So if you believe what the state of Texas tells you, and best practice is considered a 2017 UT study that says 79,000 kids are being sex trafficked at any given time in Texas alone.
Wow.
That's not getting it done, right?
We need to step our game up.
Yeah. So if there's 79,000 kids waiting for us to bring freedom, if NGOs are doing incredibly cool things and incredibly great things in this space, but search and recovery doesn't seem to be a niche, who's doing it? So then you start studying out law enforcement. And what you find is law enforcement is the tip of the spear in this fight. Homeland Security really leads that fight in Dallas-Fort Worth. They are probably the most well-respected Homeland Security division in the country in getting it done. You study out what they do, and you study out what other law enforcement does. These cases, I was talking to a special agent at Homeland week before last. He had one federally prosecuted case. He had 120,000 articles.
Wow.
In that prosecution. So you can imagine the time that goes into building these cases and all the due diligence that's required. So how much time do they actually have to do what our lens is? Not a lot. And so what we're able to do, guy gave me a word a year before I started this, the competition for credit kills. I don't know if you remember when Tom Brady played the Patriots for the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
Right. So the competition for credit kills. So I got that, and man, it just didn't make sense with anybody I was sharing it with. People looked at me like I had three eyes, and it makes perfect sense in what we do now, because the more recognition we get, the fewer kids we can actually serve. So what you're not going to do is read about us in any magazine article. You're not going to read about us,
especially the Guardian with their recent article.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we want to serve families and law enforcement with a niche of search and recovery. And so far, not quite 18 months in, our focus has led to 172 children being recovered in the state of Texas.
Amen.
To 40 adult safe exits out of the life as well. And then 41 traffickers prosecuted or arrested from our efforts. So, you know what?
There's always more kids from there that you might not directly be saving, but you're impacting the way that they get freed.
Absolutely. And we're cutting the head off of the snake by getting the traffickers as well. And so, man, we're way over our skis. We don't have anything figured out, but we have teams that are being built and assembled, and that network, that dragnet is really becoming robust. And so,
and I do have a few questions for you. I think that our readers, our listeners, and our watchers would like to know. And I know that you have a few papers with you. If you want, you're more than willing to go over any of it you'd like. What do human traffickers look like? Is there a pattern that parents should watch for, that children should watch for that are listening? Should they be kind of biased towards any appeal, or how do these things happen from the beginning?
Well, I can tell you what we see. What we see is 4 out of the 5 kids we recover come out of CPS.
Oh, dear God.
So 80% of the kids that we recover, most of them, if you can imagine your 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old goes missing, you're going to go through hell and high water to find that kid, right?
Yes.
Okay, these kids don't have that same family, right? So they're already a targeted demographic, right? So there's several complications, but most of these girls have not grown up like you and I. They're not kidnapped. They're groomed into this lifestyle. Obviously, social media is the biggest piece of it that we see.
And we had mentioned that with Georgia before, does education and what we're seeing with the normalization of sexually explicit lessons in schools kind of playing into normalizing that sort of grooming for child sex trafficking?
Yeah, the only thing I can say there is, if you can confuse a child, is there really any more attack that you need to do? You've already got them exactly where you want them. So yeah, a confused child is going to be more apt to be to go into this lifestyle. And so it's just, a lot of the girls that we recover, honestly, have grown up with mothers who are doing the same thing, and dads that were dope dealers, and just in a very hard thing. And part of the truth is too, we recover them over and over and over. And there's not a limit to what we do. Some people look at me and say, why do you just keep going to get the same one? Well, I don't know. Why did the Lord just keep giving me opportunity after opportunity? So our mission is to locate and recover kids who have been sex trafficked. We have artificial intelligence, technology, open source intelligence that allows us to do that, right?
So I have to ask, sorry.
No, you're good.
What degree of this is a cartel? Are they just the logistics, or are they just one of many moving parts? Are they a chunk of it?
Yeah, we see a lot of gang activity.
Okay.
Is in the Blade there in Houston, and we do a lot up here as well. We don't do a whole lot at the border quite yet, but imagine when we get down there, we'll probably be running into more of that. But mainly it's there is turf where these girls are sold, and most of that turf is owned by a gang.
I was deployed to the border while I was in the Army. We did anti-human trafficking, anti-drug trafficking, and basically anywhere north of the border, Texas is considered occupied by the cartel.
Yeah.
DFW is a hot spot. Houston is a hot spot. So I was kind of curious, like from your perspective, how much of it is the cartel? But
the majority of the nearly over 95% of the girls that we've recovered are homegrown.
Okay.
Wow.
They're not sent over the border. They're homegrown.
There are children specifically.
That's right.
And there was another thing that I wanted to ask you. For any of the listeners or any of the viewers that are watching this would like to contribute to the program, how can they do that? Is there a website they go to? Is there a specific link where they can go to support your efforts?
Absolutely, yeah. Freed People, and that's FREEDPEOPLE.org. Freedpeople.org is our website, and of course we have a Facebook page as well. And there's a lot of stories and understanding on both that website and our Facebook page.
And if you don't mind, would you be willing to share something that you think is necessary for parents, for school teachers, anybody that is aware that this is happening in their community? Is there anything that they can do to stop it at a local level besides, contributing? Is there any initiative that they can take to put an end to this issue?
Well, the root of everybody that we recover is broken relationships. Like, that's the root of all of it, right? So most of the kids we recover don't have a father in their life. They don't have consistent family. They don't have consistent love. As freed people, it's my mission and my conviction as a freed person to fill that gap and to stand in the way of what these traffickers see as a commodity. And so whether that's advocating in your community, helping people understand what's going on, helping people understand the social media is a big thing. And just like there's a CIA on our end looking to see what's going on, it's $150 billion problem. So if it's $150 billion problem, do you think there's a business model behind it?
Oh yeah.
You bet there is. And that's what people don't understand. They think there's 30,000 kids that age out of foster care every year. What happens to those kids? A lot of those kids are dropped off at homeless shelters. Well, you know what? The numbers say 1 in 6 of those kids will be approached by a trafficker within 48 hours. Well, what is that child going to do?
Christ.
So the need is massive. But man, if we can get out and advocate, step up and be that role model for a child who needs it, obviously you can donate. And then, for us, prayer really works. It's tangible. It's not conceptual. It's not theory. For us, we had 2 girls that we were looking for in Dallas, had nothing to go on. We have a team of 100 intercessors that pray for our teams and pray for these children. Within 48 hours, we found them both. So it's not make-believe for us. Like, the power of prayer actually works. And so those are 3 ways that you could definitely have huge impact in our space.
Human trafficking, and I just want to put my 2 cents in there, is really the evidence of a shortcoming of our society. And I'm not saying that people have failed at being good, but our society has really failed at moralizing the issue itself. We have a chance to create a place that is safe for our children. We have a chance with all of the resources that we have to make sure that this stops. And you have $100 and something billion going to support a war in a country most people can't find on a map. And I'm not here to debate the war, but we have the money. We have the manpower. Sean went down to the border to solve this himself. Mr. Shelton here has taken the initiative to do this. Our federal government, our state government, and I dare say our local governments really need to step up to the plate and take initiative. If we have, and you said it was 71,000?
79,000 kids.
79,000 a year?
79,000 kids being trafficked at any one given moment in the state of Texas.
So we have nearly 80,000 people, nearly a fifth of the size more than the entire population of Burleson being trafficked in the state at any given moment. It really shows that our government does not have its priorities in line. And I'm not here to attack anybody, but if Mr. Shelton is rescuing these many kids with the resources that he has, and props to the law enforcement officers that really take a step up to help you guys with this, because it really shows the shortcoming of our federal agencies, that sometimes we might be spending more in one area and completely lacking out on what our priorities should be here at home, saving these kids, ensuring that once they leave foster care, they have a place that they can go. And I would beg to support a federal funded agency that gives these children some sort of allowance that they can live on, until they can get a job, until they can go to school. I would support that a lot more than I would support $900 billion towards a defense, a military industrial complex that's doing nothing but destroying life abroad. If we have that many resources here at home, imagine what we can accomplish in our own community. And one thing that I will mention with you, Matt, is Sheriff King. I don't know if you've worked with him very much. He has talked a lot about the shortcomings with knowing that there are children in a home and still not being able to go in and do that. Do you have any method that we can solve the sort of law enforcement holdback from going in and getting these kids? Or is it just a matter of separation of legality and rescue?
Man, really, the lens that we have is strictly recovery. So what we're going to do is work with law enforcement. So our calls have gone from primarily families to primary law enforcement. And so what we're there to do is to support them and be force multipliers for them in this fight. So when you talk about a federal agency, for example, Homeland Security, they have a very small handful of agents that are focused on human trafficking. These agents are working more hours than you can shake a stick at, and their heart is exactly where it needs to be. And we're able to sometimes come alongside them and just be a force multiplier for them, along with state and federal. So I mean, that's just our experience, and that's what we're seeing. I can't fix that problem, but what we want to do is come alongside and support any way we can.
And Mick and I had done this with Matthew, and this is really an issue that has touched Mick and I after we had seen the new Sound of Freedom movie, which we're still encouraging everybody. If you have not seen the movie, go out and see it. These people need the money more than any of these Hollywood pedophiles do. Those people don't deserve another dollar until the issue is solved. And if Disney, if anybody is not going to pick up the stake at this issue, then it's time for us as people to go out and at least be aware of this, even if you're not law enforcement or anything of that matter. But I do want to ask if you would mind if we said a prayer for your organization real quick before you go.
Great.
But I don't know if you guys want to grab hands, but Heavenly Father, I pray that you would be over my brother Matt Shelton, that you would be with his organization, Lord, Freed People, that you would allow them to do outstanding and astounding work, Lord, before your creation, that you would allow them the honor and the privilege to go in and rescue those children that need rescued, Lord. Give them the finances they need, the effort that they need, the manpower that they need, and every resource that you can possibly provide, Lord, and that you would watch over them and keep their safety and the safety of these children, Lord, in your arms and your hands. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And we would like to thank Mr. Shelton for being on, and we would like to thank Georgia for being on. I know there's things that we have learned for sure from you, from Georgia, and from Mr. Lucci that had come in on Tuesday. And I know that our listeners are kind of upset about this issue. I want to say that it's imperative to remember, do not be angry at this issue. The issue is those people are angry with the way that God had created this world, that we should protect and nourish our children, that we should engage them to be better citizens, to be better Christians. And if we are meeting anger with anger, we're not solving anything. We are only prolonging. So pray for the issue, and that Mr. Shelton and the rest of others like him in our country can prosper and use their organizations to free these kids, and continue to pray. God bless and stay cool. We'll see you next time.